Hello and welcome back to the Tyre Recycling Podcast, the industry-leading podcast series for the tyre recycling industry. Ewan Scott is on hand to take us through today's episode. Ewan, what have you got planned for today's episode?
Today we're going to talk through some of the articles in the latest edition of Tyre Rubber Recycling, and we also have an interview with Fabio Pisani from E-Cova in Italy.
Brilliant. Well, it seems like we have a good episode planned then. I know we'll be looking at the articles due in issue 4 in the middle of the podcast, as you've just mentioned. But let's focus on our interview with Fabio Pisani from E-Cova in Italy. For those who aren't familiar with E-Cova, Ewan, who are they? What do they specialise in?
E-Cova is a family business in Italy. They came from the retreading market. They retreaded solid tyres, and they were accumulating a number of waste solid tyres that they couldn't retread. So they looked for a solution rather than need to send them to landfill. They developed in-house, using their own engineering team, they developed a solid tyre buffing machine. And over the last couple of years, they've progressed with the development of that, and they now have a very efficient way of buffing down solid tyres. Solid tyres are made from more natural rubber than anything else, and so the buffings and the strippings that they get from the solid tyres are of very high quality. They have a solution that none of the big guys seem to have looked at. So that's the main focus of E-Cova. That's what we'll be talking about.
Very good. Now, as you rightly say, E-Cova have been doing this for a while, and they've been collecting tyres and producing rubber buffing from solid tyres for some time now, and they are quite well established in the Italian recycling community. So without any more waiting around, we'll dive into that interview right now.
Fabio Pisani from E-Cova in Italy joins us today, and Fabio is going to tell us a bit about the background of E-Cova. So over to you, Fabio.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for your invitation to your podcast, and I'm really pleased to be here. So to start with E-Cova, a little bit of history. The company was born in 2011, and is dealing with solid tires and press-on-bond collection and recycling. So we have a special equipment which is made by ourselves and patented, of course, which we use to obtain output material, which is rubber powder and buffings in different sizes. This is sort of secondary raw material, which is used in building area mainly to manufacture insulating board, safety floor panels, anti-vibration panels for railways, for example, and decorative mulch also in landscape area. So we are a small company, a small family-run business, which is of course involved in solid tires. We are keen in this area, and for example, we are not dealing with car passenger or truck tires.
So you produce buffings and strips that can be reused in new products. You manufacture your own equipment.
Yes.
Have you made any modifications? Have you introduced any new developments to the equipment or the process in the recent years?
Yeah, the equipment is always under development, because of course by using it every day, you find out what I won't say wrong, but what what could be developed just to increase production quality and manufacturing quality. So machinery is always under development, and of course also we pay attention to the quality of the material, because this material, well, we start from a good basis, because solid tires are mainly composed of natural rubber. So a high content of natural rubber is found in the output material. But of course, there are some different levels of qualities. You have the premium tires, the mid-range tires, and the budget tires. So you have different compounds, which results in the output material. So our main goal is to always improve the quality of the material we provide our customers.
Okay, so you have the equipment which you wish to sell to the market, so that for example, people in the UK who are interested in disposing of solid tires can buy your equipment and produce the same materials as yourselves. And you also have materials that you sell throughout Europe, I understand.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, our offer comprehends both the equipment and the output material as well. It depends from the request of the customers.
Now that's it for part one with our interview with Fabio. We'll be back very shortly for the remainder of that conversation. In the meantime, you may be aware that the latest issue of Tyre Rubber Recycling is out now, and we're just going to take some time to go through some of the latest articles. And who better is there to take us through these articles than the editor, Ewan Scott, who puts the magazine together. I think it goes without saying that our main item this time round is our interview with Michelin's Michael Cohn to discuss the BlackCycle project. Would I be correct in thinking that?
Absolutely. The Michelin BlackCycle project really has inspired people. It has raised the profile of recovered carbon black and tire pyrolysis. Even though the focus of this is actually taking the oil from pyrum and sending it to Orion, a carbon black manufacturer, and Orion will take that oil and reprocess it to produce carbon black. So pyrum will still be producing recovered carbon black, but this is a secondary production by a specialist to produce carbon black from the pyrolysis oil that pyrum produce. The whole process is aiming at looking at recycling 50% of the tire risings in the European market. Now, that might worry some people because that's going to impact on feedstock supplies for already existing processes. However, Michelin are focusing on the 50% of tire risings that get exported from the UK, from Europe, which is really interesting take, because the ETRMA have for a long time argued that European tire recycling was mostly done in Europe. It clearly isn't, and Michelin have highlighted the fact that exporting is not just a UK issue, it is something that happens throughout Europe. But the main thing is that here's a tire manufacturer coming out into the open big time and saying, we want to look at how we can maximize the recycled content of our future products. And that is a real game changer. It's only a research project at the moment, but within 3-4 years, they should have some outcomes and possibly some solutions, and we might then see a complete change in the approach to pyrolysis across Europe. It's worth noting that pyrum, independently of this, have been successful in their own right, because they have achieved gained investment from BASF, who wants to take their products again and use their pyrolysis oil as a basis for further chemical production and polymer production. So that's a very interesting pair of articles in the magazine. And as a little addendum to that, New Energy in Hungary, a smaller pyrolysis project that we've spoken about once or twice before, they have also attracted a contract from BASF to supply them with pyrolysis oil. So after many years of struggling to get product accepted, we now have a number of pyrolysis companies engaged with big players in the market. It has been a complete game changer recently. 2020 has been a year where we've had a lot of bad news, but for the pyrolysis sector, the tire pyrolysis sector, it has been more good news than bad news.
Definitely, yeah. I think those two stories are, well, clearly of key importance this time round, and they both link nicely together. They're a good double act. And if you're a premium subscriber to Tyre Rubber Recycling, you can gain unrestricted access to these articles through our digital version. But besides the premium content, I see we've also got an overview of the Indian shredder manufacturer Fornaxx. What can you tell us about that?
Fornaxx are an Indian manufacturer of shredding equipment, and the Indian market has been developing and growing, and as it has matured, it has developed its own supply chains, and nonetheless, not the least of which has been in the shredding equipment. One of the leaders in India is this company called Fornaxx, who produce as we say, shredding equipment for tire reduction. They are now looking to export their end product to the rest of the world. Now, Indian materials are cheaper than European materials, or American materials for that matter. We can expect to see Fornaxx taking some market share in Europe or North America, but I suspect that the biggest market is likely to be competing with the Chinese in Africa, where tire recycling is in its infancy, and they can't afford the top quality equipment from the big name manufacturers. So getting something reliable from an Indian manufacturer has to be a good thing. So Fornaxx is a name to look out for.
Definitely, Fornaxx, they've come onto the scene fairly recently, and they're definitely looking to grow and make an impact in the tire recycling sector. But obviously, besides Fornaxx, which I'm sure our readers will enjoy hearing about, we also have a piece on UK Rubber, and listeners to the Tyre Recycling podcast will remember that we interviewed them fairly recently on this podcast. What have you got to tell us regarding UK Rubber, Ewan?
The interesting thing about UK Rubber is the simple fact that it's based in Motherwell, Scotland. Scotland has been more or less bereft of an actual tyre recycling plant. There have been various attempts over the years. They have come and gone. Some of them have been more legitimate than others. Scotland took some radical action a couple of years back and banned the T8 exemption. This is the Environment Agency exemption that allows people to operate up to certain tonnage of collecting tyres without having to have a full permit. That resulted in virtually all the tyres collected in Scotland being sent south of the border or dumped illegally. So UK being established in Motherwell has the potential to take on the vast majority Scotland's Tyre risings, which will go down very well with the Scottish government's zero waste policy. So it's an interesting read. If you missed the podcast, it's in the podcast is still on the website, and the article is in the magazine. It's worth a read to see where these guys are going.
Definitely. I think, it's a nice way to combine the two sets of content, the podcast and the articles. If something more visual, you like listening to interviews, and we got the podcast, but also the interview, which does go a little bit further than the podcast. We recommend giving both a look. But it sounds like we've got all bases covered for issue 4 of Tyre Rubber Recycling. The digital version can be accessed via our website, and there's also plenty of other news in the magazine besides the pieces we've already mentioned. Now, though, we'll be returning to part 2 of our interview with Fabio Pisani.
And are you seeing demand for the equipment across Europe?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we see some interest in the equipment. Of course, when companies have to dispose solid tires and they are too far from us, and they have good quantities to dispose, it will be better for them to have the equipment, because of course, for transport reasons, the distance and everything, it will be much more convenient for them to have the equipment rather than to dispose to our factory.
Okay, so I've been to your factory, so I've seen the equipment. I understand that at your facility, you have a complete process. So you check in the tires, you feed them into the machine, you buff them down, you draw them off, you classify them. You have the whole process there. Would somebody looking at your equipment have to buy the whole process, or is it possible to buy just the buffing equipment and fit it into their own system? Could it be made mobile?
Yeah, the machinery, in fact, it needs to be installed in an indoor, so you can just move them from a place to another without all the equipment. It's a very compact machinery. It's just 2 meters high, and it covers a surface of around 4 square meters. So very, very compact. But it needs to be linked to a vacuum system. This is why it's not easy to move them from a place to another, because the vacuum system, of course, collects the material and drop it to the sieving net. So another tool that is needed is the sieving net. In case one wants to separate the different sizes of the output material. So you have the machinery itself, and then you have 2 other systems, which are the vacuum system and the sieving net, to have a complete production line. And then material is packed into bulk bags. For example, our regular production sees material into 1 ton bulk bags. We are considering the opportunity to pack also in smaller bags. This is one of our plans for the near future. And then, yeah, this is our complete production line.
Okay, how small does the crumb that you get? What is the smallest volume material that you can produce? I mean, I understand that any buffing process will produce some very fine powders. Usually, it's a small amount unless you actually manufacture the powder. So what's your normal smallest crumb that you produce?
Yeah, the smallest we have, we call it the rubber powder, and it's from 0.1 millimeter up to 1 millimeter, so very, very fine. And this is, yeah, the rubber powder.
Okay, and the markets for that rubber powder, who's buying that? Is that the sort of thing that you might supply because it is natural rubber you have? Are you supplying that to the bitumen market for rubberized asphalt?
Yeah, the bitumen market is developing. Is developing nowadays. So we have some customers using in this, yeah, for the modified bitumen, or some other application, for example, in new solid tires or new tire compounds, or tires like wheelie dustbins, you know, this kind of, yeah, very small tires. So this is another kind of application.
Okay, so you're supplying both traditional markets and developing markets.
Yeah.
So that's good news. Now I understand that you have already sold equipment to, is it Corgum down in Bari in the south of Italy?
No, actually we sold the equipment abroad. So
you sold it abroad, right?
Yeah, in various countries, both in Europe and extra Europe.
Okay, so that's good news. That's good news.
Yeah.
So the E-Cova solid tire buffing machine is spreading around the world now.
Yeah, luckily, yeah, and it's very easy to use. So one single worker can easily manage two machinery at the same time. So it's almost completely automatic, very easy to use. And also we provide the complete after sales service. So a customer that buys the equipment also has our support.
Okay, so I remember that the first time I came to see you, you had just developed the equipment, and then the second time it was obviously it had been developed beyond your own needs, and you're now reaching out into an international market with this. Solid tires are very difficult to dispose of in normal shredding processes. And here in the UK, I've been to several recyclers who have collected solid tires, thinking they could shred them, and then realizing that they can't. Their machinery just won't look at them. As soon as they put a solid tire in a conventional shredding machine, the thing just stops. So it's good to have your equipment on the market, and going out there and dealing with a troublesome product. So where do you go next? What's your next development?
Yeah, our focus on the future comprehends some kind of, yeah, apart of what I just said about the small package bags, but we are following a project with an Italian university to find new application for the output material. So this is what we are working in this period, and it's a project that will last 12 months, so 1 year, and so yeah, we will look what the results will be. I'm very curious to find new opportunities.
So in a year's time, you will hopefully have 1 or 2 new products that you can sell your material into.
That brings to an end part 2 of our interview with Fabio Pisani from E-Cova. Ewan, what was your main find from that discussion with Fabio?
It's interesting to see that E-Cova are now looking at the wider market, because in the past they've focused on the Italian market, and now they're selling this equipment outside Italy to people who are in the same situation as they had been. They've been collecting solid tires, and they didn't know what to do with them. I recall visiting one plant who had thought that dealing with solid tires would be something straightforward. But as soon as they put a couple of solid tires into their conventional shredder, it just stopped working. So the wires in there's not so many wires in solid tires, but they are very heavy duty stuff, and they mixed in with the rubber and the packing. It's a messy business to shred them completely. And even at E-Cova, they only take the good rubber out of the tires. So they've been dealing with these tires for many years, and they know each brand, they know each size, they know how far they can take the buffing in each of these tires. So they've got an excellent product, they've got an excellent concept, and they actually help solve a problem that it's a global problem. What do you do with solid tires? The days of taking them and chucking them into an oven and pyrolysing them are on the wane. Even likes of India, Malaysia, the Philippines, the countries that used to do that, they're all stopping it now. So there needs to be another solution, and E-Cova seem to have it.
For sure. Do you think that, although they've got a solution, do you think they'll find surely there'll be a lot of competition in that sector that they'll have to overcome?
I think, interestingly, the competition may well come, but because it's such a niche market, and landfilling of solid tires has up until recently been permitted, and it's still permitted in most countries around the world. So until legislation drives the market, it's not particularly interesting to the big players, because they might only sell 2 or 3 per market, if that. So, I mean, the solid tire sector in the UK, I think there are perhaps 3 players supplying the market, maybe 4, and they all take their tires back. And then they will amalgamate where those tires end up. So the market for the product is necessary, but not always going to be as great as it would be for any other shredder. Remember, if you're manufacturing a full-size shredder for tires, that full-size shredder for tires will also be available for dealing with biomass, with wood, with steel, with any other product. Whereas this tire buffer, the solid tire buffer, it's dedicated. It's for solid tires and nothing else. I did have a discussion with somebody, a producer in the UK, who were looking for a solution for stripping rubber tracks from tracked vehicles, and they hummed and hawed about the idea, but it could be adapted to deal with rubber tracks, which are another different issue. But E-Cova, in the meantime, we're focusing on tires. I think they've got plenty of room to get the market they need.
Definitely. I think as well, it's the case of, waste management, that in the future solutions will need to be as niche as possible, not just from tire recycling, but, plastics and all the paper and metals, all these kind of things. We're moving more and more towards a world where sustainability and resource optimization is key. So, niche solutions like this will be critical, but also may become more mainstream as we move forward.
It's ironic that, say, we have here a niche product, and the future market may need niche products, but equally the future market is going to need more and more flexibility from producers to create the end products that the market wants. So it may be that E-Cova need to tie up with a producer of some other equipment for argument's sake, with a powderizer to create fine powders from natural rubber. There are a lot of issues and a lot of technicalities. There's a lot of heat generated in powderizing rubber, and if you get natural rubber, that heat damages the quality of the rubber. So lots of issues for the future. But as far as E-Cova concerned, I do think they've got a future. I do think they've got a product, and I have to admit I've been a supporter of what they've been doing for several years now.
Brilliant. Well, that is true, and it's good to see. It's good to see a company like E-Cova prospering, and we hope to see them take some good positive steps forward over the next few months and next few years as they try to export that product further afield. But anyway, that's it for today's episode of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast wherever and however you're listening and or watching to it. And we'll be back very shortly for another episode. Until then, stay safe.